Are you planning on taking on 70.3 Pennsylvania or Happy Valley, as it's otherwise known this year, and are curious about what to expect on the day? Well, if so, this is the video for you because in it, we're going to go through, I'm going to talk to a very experienced coach who has intimate knowledge of this course, the uniqueness, its split transitions, its transition bags, all the real stuff you need to know in advance to have a belter of a race day. So let's get to it. So, who am I? Well, my name is Steven Moody, or Coach Steve. I'm an IRONMAN certified coach, but more recently, I'm a YouTuber who actually does reviews of the half distances and full distances around the world. So, how do I do that? Because I'm clearly only based in Ireland. Well, I do this because I have a cool network of really tuned in coaches who either have done the course, who've got athletes of course, and I sit down and I ask them the questions you want to know. Is it a TT bike course? Is it a wetsuit legal? All the things that are wandering around your first timer brain or your brain looking for a PB. And in this, today's course, we're going to talk to Josh, a good friend of the channel, Josh Venis, who has got athletes, coach athletes on this course, got athletes going this year. So, Josh, a little bit about yourself and so how are you doing?
Hey Steve, thanks for having me on again. Again, for those that don't know me, my name is Coach Josh Venis. I've been coaching for now my sixth season. I'm an Ironman U certified coach. I do this full time. This is what I do. It's my passion. It is my full-time income, and I love getting on these calls, giving people, a little bit of a course preview and sharing some tips and tricks and some things to help prevent failure on race day and help you be set up for success.
Yeah. I'm glad you said success. We never went to the word failure on the channel. We're just gonna set you for success, baby. Um,
That's right.
So let's get straight into it. And again, I'll use my standard pun. Let's dive into the swim course. I think this is probably one of the more easy parts of the course that we'll talk through. It's a one loop. What can people expect on the day, Josh?
Yeah, this swim course, I will tell you, is probably one of the easiest swim courses you'll see. It is a very, very straight course. There's basically two turns, right? You get into this course, it's a triangle, it's a clockwise rotation. So you're going to get in where the green square is. You're going to come out to the first turn buoy. It's about 700 meters. You're going to make a very sharp right-hand turn. It's greater than 90, or it's obviously less than 90 degrees. So it's a very sharp, tight corner. And then proceedingly down to the other opposite end of the triangle, about another 700 meters to the second turn, another sharp turn right, and then back into the T1 area. So some things to note here, right? This with this course being very evenly split across all three of these sides of the triangle, pacing is very critical. So when you go out for the first couple buoys, you want to kind of get out, find the feet that you want to be on, find a good line to sight and try to stay on that line, right? Now, one thing I could tell people, and I tell people this on prior reviews we've done, it doesn't matter what side of the buoys you swim on the yellow, as long as you go around the outside red buoy the correct way. You cannot cut the course, you cannot cut the angle, but you can if you're a left side. I'm a right-sided breather, so this course is set up perfectly for me because I would sight the buoys to my right. But if you happen to be a left-sided breather, then you may potentially want to drift inside the buoy line and sight to your left. Now you can do that. Not a lot of people will, but you could if you want. You still have to go around the outside red buoy the correct way and make the right-hand turn. So you cannot cut inside. There will be kayakers at each of those corners to make sure that there are athletes not cutting those corners. And the other thing with these buoys being very tight, there's going to be a lot of congestion in those corners. So it could be advantageous if you're a strong swimmer to kind of sweep around to the outside a little bit more than you maybe would so that you can get around the traffic better and stay in your swim stroke routine a little bit better and stay in rhythm. So that's my quick advice there. And the other thing I'll say is this, I know you're going to ask this question, so I'll proactively tell you. The water condition there, it's clean. The water's clean here. It's a lake swim. The water temp is going to be right around 76 degrees. So it will be on the border. Every year that they've had it, it has been wetsuit legal so far. But being that it's a late June race, there is that potential that it could be non-wetsuit. So make sure you bring both options, whether you have a swim skin or you're going to use a wetsuit. I personally would bring my sleeveless wetsuit to this race because when temperatures are above 72 to 74, I definitely don't want to overheat. So I would bring a sleeveless wetsuit to this race, plan on wearing it. And another benefit here is you can go down and practice a little bit in that beach area to the left of the finish start shoot, or sorry, to the left of the finish shoot. You can practice down there prior to race day as long as you stay in the designated area. There is a very strict guideline in the athlete guide that says if you swim outside this area, you could be disqualified. So make sure you know that. Make sure you look at that prior to going and trying to do a practice swim.
Fantastic. Couple of questions for myself, Josh. So it's a rolling swim start. It's a seated swim start.
Yes, that is correct. Just every single 70.3 that I am aware of in North America does the rolling swim start. Yes.
Fantastic. With a slide there, and we'll talk through what that means for those who are new and go, seated swim start. I said, don't worry, we got you covered. And again,
Yeah.
our exiting out of the water, what is this? Is it onto the beach, or are you onto a pontoon, or the steps, or how do we get out of the water?
Yeah, so it's a sand entry and a sand exit. And then once you get past the beach, you're running on grass. So some of that could be carpeted, but it's very likely that it won't be. I haven't physically attended this race, so I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I do know that this T1 is pretty short comparatively to what other 70.3 courses are. So it should be a relatively fast T1 for most people. And all the bikes will be set up in that area. It'll be a massive corral, just like every Ironman race, and everything should be very smooth for you.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. And we'll talk a little bit of a transition after we talk about this seated swim start. And in terms of your time to get it done, you have 1 hour and 10 minutes to get, once you cross the timing mat, which we at the swim start here, and we'll talk about that now. Then you've got an hour and 10 minutes to get around the entire triangle and hit the other timing mat, which will be around the finish line. Cool. So before we talk about transition, we'll ask Coach Josh for some great tips on that. Just to think about what we talked about in terms of a seated swim start. This is my part of the video because and this is my bit of spiel. So the what Ironman decided a few years ago, they found out that it was actually when you were the biggest reason why people didn't sign up the race was the idea of a mass swim start because it was very scary when they saw people everybody going into the water like lemmings. So what they did is they've managed to smooth out the flow of people into the water, and how they do that is you'll turn up on race morning, you will see little signs. I say under 30 minutes, 30 to 35 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes. That is the seeding time, and you get into the water get into those corrals based on what you expect to finish the 1.9 swimming. So if you swim, what you call it, around 2 minutes per 100 in the pool or in the open water, you're roughly going to be around in the 35 to 40 minute corral. And then you all line up there. And then Ironman will slowly let you all into the water. Typically, now this isn't Pennsylvania itself, but this is just a really cool illustration. They they will have little gates here, and they will let athletes in. Now the pros will go first if there is a pro field. I'm not too sure. And then the faster age groupers, the people who are going to swim around 25 minutes for this, they will go in first. And how they do is, as you can see, the volunteers are here every now when the gun goes off, then every 5, 6 seconds afterwards, the guys lift up their arms and these guys enter the water. And as you can see, it just smooths out everything. This guy's getting his garment straight off. Again, probably just press that there because that's when your time starts when you cross that mat. And it just means that everyone gets into the water nice and smooth and controlled. Coach Josh, what's your tip about in seeding yourself in these races? Is it a good idea to go at the front or the back, or what would you tell a newbie?
Yeah, this course, I was going to mention this earlier, but this course will probably be the one of three segments that you'll have a chance to PR because this swim should be very fast. It's not current assisted, but it's very clean water. It's basically two turns and it's very straight. So if you're a good swimmer and you're looking to PR your swim split, this is a place to do it. And the other thing I'll say here is make sure you get down there and get to the swim start in plenty of time to relax, control your breathing, and really try to calm yourself down so that you're not anxious and worried and frantic before the race starts.
Okay, no, great tips. And again, get yourself in the right corral because when you get in the right corral, you will end up swimming with swimmers of your own ability and probably end up having that draft even help that even was it accelerate that PR swim split as Coach Josh was talking about. And don't make the mistake of thinking if you're going to be close to cut off that you should put yourself in. If you're a 45-minute swimmer, don't think you're going to make yourself life easier by getting yourself into 25-minute swimmer, because faster swimmers will come from behind and swim over you. Seed yourself honestly. If everyone does it, it works remarkably well. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about transition now, or anything else on the swim before we go on to transition.
Now, good to go.
Fantastic. Okay. So this is it's an unusual 70.3 for North America, as it uses the transition bags, and it's also a split transition. Is that right, Coach?
Yeah, this one's very unique, Steve. And as we talked prior to this call, this race will require you to do some things a little different. So make sure you are well prepared to do the required tasks to complete for transition one and two. So as you indicated, you do need to use the transition bags. You'll actually get three of them. You'll get a morning clothes bag that you can take with you down to the swim start. You can throw your clothes in that bag and give it to the volunteers. They will take that to the finish line. All bags go to the finish line. So that's first and foremost. Number two, your bike gear bag is actually an optional thing. You can actually take it down when you rack your bike on Saturday, which is racking your bike is a requirement. We'll talk about that later. But the blue bike bag can actually be brought with you race morning if you choose, or you can drop it with your bike on bike check-in day. So that one's optional. However, the red run bag, when you are at T2, which is up closer to the finish line, that is in a separate location, right? So this is basically a point-to-point race. They're going to bus and shuttle everyone out to the swim start, where the swim will start and T1 will be, and then you will bike back toward T2 and where the run will start and where the finish line is. So the run bag is required for you to have completed with everything you want for the run in that bag prior to race day, and it has to be checked in T2 by 4 p.m. on Saturday.
Yeah. And again, and for those who are new to the concept of transition bag, you might have done your local sprint and it said, but I used to put everything inside my bag and my bike. Well, this is again another way that Ironman can do these mass races. They call it a clean transition. So you don't have things beside the bike and all the rest. And it just means that you put all the bike elements in your blue bag if you choose to use it, and all your run elements, your runners, your shades, etc., your visor in the red bag. There's a video in the comments below that explains and shows what stuff can go in your bag to make sure it's very clear for you. But as Coach Josh said it correctly, make sure you're aware of the logistics the night before, as in the day before, when you need to check in that blue bag, where you need to go to put your red bag, etc. And then walk the transition. So where you know your ins, know your outs, where you're going to come out of the water, where's your bike racked, where's that red bag going to be if you're using it, etc. Cool. What's your top tip for a newbie who's nervous about their first 70.3 transition, Coach?
Yeah, for this, I would just say make sure you lay all your gear out before you put it in the bags and then take a picture of it so that you know you can go back and look at that picture and kind of say, oh, I know I put that in because it was in my picture. And everything from the stuff that you lay out should go in your bag, and then you know you have it. So the other thing too, I will say there's a little caveat to this bike bag. You can actually put your helmet and your shoes on your bike race morning, along with your bottles of nutrition, all that stuff, because this is an optional gear bag. But what you have to use the blue gear bag for is when you come out of the swim, you're going to need to put your goggles, swim cap, and wetsuit or swim skin, whatever you use. Everything from the swim goes into this blue bag, and then you have to tie it and hand it to a volunteer, and or I think they might let you leave it at your rack. But either way, that blue bag needs to be secured and tied before you leave transition one, because that bag is going to go with you in a big bin all the way to the finish line. So make sure you sticker these bags. They're going to give you sticker with your number, your race bib number, to put on every one of these bags. I also recommend, if you have a special colored duct tape that you like, or if you want to write your name on the bag with your phone number, just so things cannot get misplaced. This is a course where I hear a lot of people that have, oh, my bag got mixed up with somebody else or something like that. So this is an opportunity to try to mistake proof that by trying to write extra information that someone can contact you if they get your bag incorrectly, something like that. So it's always beneficial to have more information on there than less, because if there's information for them to get a hold of you, then you're going to be more likely to get your bag back if it gets misplaced or crossed up with another athlete.
Yeah, and again, it's really, if you use the system as well, you won't be that guy going, did someone pick up my wetsuit? As I said, like looking for pictures of it. No, so it actually makes things a lot more streamlined for the athletes on the day. And again, Ironman does have this as a very slick system, and as you said, all the stuff will go to the finish line. So don't sort of go worry about how we're going to pick that all up. Cool. We will then move out to our run on our bike course then, if there's no other tips there. And yes, so point to point bike course. Talk us a little bit through this, coach.
Yeah, so this course, I'll just say it right now. This course is hilly. It's hard. There's around 3,500 feet of elevation gain, which is a little more than the standard average for North America races. Most races in North America are anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 feet. This has almost double that. So that being said, if you've signed up for this course and you think it's going to be easy, I will tell you right now, it's not going to be. There is a lot of hills to climb in this course, and there's a lot of technical parts of this course that you need to be prepared for. That's not to scare you. If you're prepared and you follow some sort of plan, or you're working with a coach, or whatever you're doing, if you're doing it on your own, just make sure you ride hills before you come to this course, or you will be at a disadvantage, I will just say. So the bike course is actually kind of set up pretty nicely. So you come out of T1, you actually do a 5 mile out and back, which covers your first 10 miles. That's the easiest part of the course. It's flat. It's very, simple, but that part of the course is going to be congested because not only are you going to have bikers going out to the turnaround, you're also going to have bikers coming back from the turnaround on the opposite side of the road. So this is a point in the course where you need to be very cautious and careful as a rider, especially if you're trying to pass somebody. Do not pass outside of I call it the median, the middle yellow line, because you're going to have riders coming from the opposite way ahead of you that are coming around past the turnaround. So just be a very courteous rider and try not to do anything being a hero on this first 10 miles of the course. Just get out, get moving, get into your cadence, push the power that you're targeting for the early part of the race. And the biggest thing in this first 10 miles is get some nutrition in you, whether you're a liquid hydration nutrition guy on the bike or girl, or whether you take some solid food in. This is the part of the course where it's going to be easiest to take in some of that first part of your budgeted nutrition for the bike course.
Cool, excellent. And then in terms of road surface, what will people expect to find? Is it good road surface? Is it potholy like Ireland, or what should they expect?
Yeah, the roads are pretty good from what I understand. I did a little research on my own prior to this presentation, and from what I can tell, it's pretty good. I would recommend that you kind of pay attention for yourself. The nice thing that I'll tell you, and I'll say this now, when you go rack your bike Saturday, you actually get the privilege of basically driving the bike course. So you should pay attention. You're probably staying down by the Penn State College, down where Steve's kind of got his cursor now by the finish line. When you start to drive, you're going to drive the bike course in reverse. You're going to go out all the way to the reservoir, and you're going to get to kind of see in reverse how that bike course flows. Okay. Or you can pay attention on your way back to your hotel or your lodging and kind of see how the course works the front ways. But either way, you're going to see what the quality of the roads look like, where there could be potholes. And if there is a pothole, the Ironman course crew does very good at marking them with orange tape, double arrows, basically telling you that's a hazard. So Ironman does a very good job if there's ever a hazard on the road surface to make sure that you're notified of that and you can see it before you approach it. Now, obviously, you're also going to see other riders in front of you, whether they move over or how they try to navigate those certain things. So yes, again, I think the road surfaces are good for the most part, but again, make a judgment call for yourself when you go out and drive that part of the course, when you go out and drop your bike off on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, so and it looks a very straightforward course in terms of aside from the hills, there's only a couple of 90-degree turns here, but in terms of other courses that we reviewed, it seems straight enough. Big question we always get asked, Josh, what's your call on it? Is it a TT bike course or is it a road bike course?
Yeah,
If you
for
have the
me,
option.
Steve, it really depends on the athlete. I think for the beginner athlete, they're going to ride whatever they have. In most cases, they probably don't have two bikes. So whether they have a road bike or a TT bike, it doesn't really matter. I think if it's an athlete like myself or anyone that I'm coaching, they're taking their TT bike because, we train on hills. The most hill climb in one section here is, I think, about 740 feet of climb. So we're not climbing mountains, we're just climbing hills. So at the end of the day, this isn't like a European, Tour de France course. This is just more of a rolling course, but it's got some very punchy climbs and very longer climbs that we'll talk about because there's really three main climbs in this course. I'll talk about that in a second. But basically, TT bike is what I would recommend.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. And I think that's a decent segue into our hill and the hilliness of this course, because we'll talk a little bit about the aid stations later on, which is key, making sure you're on top of, of the fueling. So, talk to me about the hills, Josh. You know how much I hate them. Would
Yeah,
I
that's
like
for
this
sure.
course?
So if you can try to follow with your cursor, I don't know if you want to go on the elevation map or out on the course, but basically the first 15 miles are relatively flat. Okay. So that's the easiest part of the course. You should get through that course well under an hour, 45 minutes for most riders or better. This is a TT. You get an arrow, you start getting into the flow, and you need to stick to your normalized power early and don't try to be a hero here because there is going to be energy needed later in the course for what you see ahead. So miles 15 to 21. So if you look at the cursor, you can see that's kind of the first part of the elevation start. From mile 15 to 25 is about 641 feet of the climb, of the total climbing, right? So 640 is about 15% of the elevation in the course. Okay. So that first, hill is going to come at mile 15 through 25, and it's basically an uphill grade. It's going to be, it's not going to be terrible hard, but you're definitely going to feel it. Okay. Now that's not even a climb yet. That's just kind of what I call, a gradual uphill over multiple longer distances of miles. Your first big climb is really what they call Beaver Bluff. It's at mile 20. Okay. So it's in between 15 to 25. So at mile 20, that is a 641 feet of climbing, right? So that's where the big part comes from. Okay. The average gradient during that climb is about 3 to 4%. Okay. So I call that the warm-up hill. Okay. And everything that goes up, you do get to run out down. There's no turns at the bottom of these hills. These are very nice hills when you go downhill, you can truly take recovery. You can spin light if you want to, or you can just not pedal at all. You can stay in arrow if you choose to. When you are riding an arrow downhill, make sure you know how to descend correctly. You could reach speeds, not on maybe these first hills, but on definitely the final hill. You can reach speeds over 35 or 40 miles an hour. So that could create a little more handling challenge for you if you're not accustomed to that type of biking. So make sure you understand how to descend and how fast you're willing to go. And when in doubt, go out on your bull horns or your brakes and be prepared to kind of feather them or slow yourself down if needed, because I'd rather see athletes finish this bike course than try to be a hero and save 30 seconds and go faster, right? So
Yeah.
Beaver Bluff at mile 20 is the first big climb. That is number one. As we progress through the bike course, the next hill is basically between mile 26 and 28 and a half. So that's the second hill that goes up there. That part of the course has 340 feet of gain in it. And that part of the course is a little bit more grade effective. It's about 3 to 7%. So you're going to have an average of about 4.5% grade. That hill is going to take you longer than the first hill. Okay. Now, the thing with these hills, and I'll say this for all of these hill climbings, you need to stay on a steady effort, manage your power, find a cadence that you can hold that's not going to burn out your legs, but you don't want to be spinning up these hills at 90 RPMs, right? You got to learn how to do what I call use your big gear work experience. And most big gear work, I'd say an average cadence for people should be about 65 to 75 RPMs. Now, some might want to spin a little slower than that or really grind up the hill, and that's okay too. But for the most part, if you maintain 65 to 75 RPMs on these hills, you're going to have enough power going into the pedals and you're going to be able to keep the legs moving correctly. If you need to get out of the saddle to rest the back a little bit, that's perfectly okay. If you think you can take them an arrow on the way up, that's fine as well. So that's hill number two. They call that Old Main Grind. That's the second hill. And then from there, you kind of get reprieve from about mile, call it 29 to mile 38. So it's about 10 to 11 miles of short little rollers going through there. Might be a little more, maybe 200 feet of gain in that little bit of climb. But that's the place. There's actually an aid station after the second climb at mile 30. So when you get through that spot and come after the downhill, there will be an aid station. Okay. So that is a good spot to get fuel. If you needed water, if you need anything from that aid station, the second aid station is very critical because you need to make sure you have that if you need something there before you get into the next big climb, which is going to be coming up between mile 38 to 41. It's the biggest and longest climb of the day, and they call this Nittany Summit. Okay. So this is the hardest climb. It's 2.5 miles, 5% average grade. Okay. And 800 feet of climbing. Okay. So this hill alone will take most riders anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes, depending on their ability to cycle. If you're a newer cyclist or a newer athlete, it might take you over 20 minutes. If you're a faster, stronger athlete, you might be able to get it done in around 10, but on average, it's probably going to be a 15 to 20-minute hill for most people. So if you think about that, that's not moving very fast. You're going to be moving somewhere between 8 to 10 miles an hour or slower. So getting up this 2.5 mile hill, you need to be patient, right? You need to make sure you have fuel and make sure you're ready to endure what I call a 10 to 15-minute interval of big gear work, right? Again, we're going to get in that 65 to 75 RPM. We're going to make sure we're pushing good power into the pedals. We can stay seated, but if we need to get up for it a little bit, the best place to get up for it is the last little section of that hill because it does get very steep at the top. So, at the top of this hill, the gradient's more around 7 to 9%, and it is very steep at the top. So be prepared for that. Know what's going on. And again, you're going to get to see this when you go drive the bike course, when you go out to drop your bike. So, here's the thing. A lot of people think that, I need to charge the hill, I need to push real hard, and then, I'm going to get up it faster. That's not the case. The case here is we need to be efficient, we need to be smart, and, just prepare to be steady. And the other thing that's kind of a challenge here too is you're going to encounter other bikers that are going to struggle up the hill. If you need to pass a cyclist, make sure you tell them because it's going to be hard to speak to people when they're climbing. So just kind of say, hey, I'm coming behind you or I'm on your left. Make sure you say that. Even if you are hill climbing, a lot of people think that's more customary when you're on a flat, but definitely on a hill as well, because a cyclist could vary a little bit with their steering when they're up out of their saddle and they're kind of swaying back and forth to climb this hill. So just make sure that you're aware of that and be a little more courteous to other riders that could be around you during this section of the hill climb. So
Yeah, no,
I'll
absolutely,
stop
and
and
it's
pause
key not to
there.
burn out too many matches on these. As I said, a steady effort rather than attacking them, and you'll like too many matches, and then you'll be absolutely cooked for the run, which is also a bit hilly.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So
okay,
here's the thing. That's the first three hills. Okay. So within the first three hills, that's only about basically 2,700 feet of the climb of the total gain. Okay. What people don't realize is from mile 41 to 56, there's actually another 740 feet of gain. So that last 14 miles, even though it looks kind of flat and looks like it's going downhill, it actually, if you zoom in on this, I actually looked at it on Strava and I encourage you to do this. There's actually 740 more feet of climbing in that last 14 miles. So you might think that you're done when you come down that last hill at mile 41, but you're not. You got more to go. So, this course is very relentless in terms of you're either going up or you're coming down, except for the first 10 miles, I'll just say.
nice. Okay, cool, excellent. Really good in-depth does a breakdown the elevation and how to approach that climb. And again, back to your original point, coach, as in definitely you got to get the hills climbed in. For me, as in what the elevation gain is. If you're doing your long peak ride, make sure you're hitting that sort of elevation, even if you have to go around in circles on your local hill. It just gives you the confidence you can actually cover it. Any other last minute tips on the bike course before we move on to transition two, which is in a different place?
Yeah, I would say I'm going to note this, but I'm not going to say that this is official. I did hear at one point that there was a speed limit going down Nittany Summit, but I'm not sure if that's enforced anymore. I don't know if that was just for the first year, but make sure you go to the athlete briefing and make sure you ask if there is a speed limit on any of this part of this course because they may want people to stay safe. I will say this, if there is going to be a speed limit enforced, they will post a sign for it and you will have to adhere to that just like they do at Oceanside, right? If you speed through that section, you're going to get a penalty or a DQ. So just make sure you know that. I'm not sure if it's enforced on this course, but I did
Yeah.
catch a little bit of glimpse of that in the notes. But read the athlete guide and go to the athlete
Yeah.
briefing.
And by the way, and that like and people can get done with that. Ask Cameron Wharf. He got disqualified in Oceanside this year because he actually broke the speed limit. He was kind of he had problems with his aero bars, tried to chase it and just forgot. And your man and he knew it as well. Your man goes, "Oh no." Okay, so we will go a little bit in terms of the actual your cutoff times for the swim, transition one time, and the bike. You have got 6 hours in this, which is a little bit more than your standard half, 5.5, which you have in most North American cutoffs. But again, that reflects as the exact word that coach used there, the relentlessness of this course. So, whilst you have extra time, use your pacing strategy and your fueling, which we'll talk about now a little bit. Um, Oops, come back here now. So, just for those who are new to Ironman racing, and there is an actual flow, and they have a very set system what they use in terms of their aid stations. And I always highlight the most important thing here is the start of the aid station and the end of the aid stations. In between these two blocks, you may discard gel wrappers, you may discard bottles, etc. But anywhere outside of that, if you do not obey that, you will get two things. One, you will get spotted by a marshal for littering Pennsylvania, which we should not. We are guests in, and we should respect the environment. And then you will also get disqualified. And it's just a really stupid way to get ruin. Was it your reward for all the training? By just being inconsiderate and not waiting until you can litter in this space. So that's the first point. The second point is aid stations are high reward yet high risk. And what do I mean by that? As I said, to successfully complete an Ironman and 70.3 and get your goal, you need to fuel on course. You need to know where they are. You need to have built it into strategy because you can't carry everything, especially if it's going to be a hot day. So you need to know how to use an aid station. And that the typical flow is they will have water, they'll have mortal hydration in pre-mixed bottles, they'll have food in terms of bananas, energy bars chopped up, etc., and then mortal gels. And then there's another option here. But what do we mean is high risk? If you think about it, as I said, it's the only place you can chuck litter, so there can be bottles hanging around, there can be gel wrappers. There's places where volunteers are literally holding out bottles to athletes and they have to go and grab the bottles and put them in the bottle cage. There's lots of moving parts. And if you don't do it right, you can come off the bike, you can go over a bottle. And back to what Coach said earlier about when you're overtaking someone, it's important to communicate. It's vitally important you communicate in an aid station to a number of levels. Tell your riders behind you, I'm coming into an aid station, I'm slowing down. Talk to a volunteer, make eye contact, and go, listen, looking for a water bottle. These guys will do a great job reaching out. Grab it, secure it, and then go, right, I'm coming out, I'm coming out. So you have to be so switched on. Um, so that's again a key skill, which again I recognize my athletes should practice. And I said, how'd you practice an aid station? You don't need to set up whatever a 500-meter long aid station with tables and like 12 volunteers. All you need to do in the end of like your long ride, get your friend, your partner, your kid, whatever to come out and hold out a bottle and you go cycle past and you work about grabbing it, securing it, and then turning around. Do it a couple of times. You'll drop it once or twice and then you'll get it. So it's key. Now lot to unpack there. There's a video in the comments below that shows demos, gives you little sort of tips to show how to do this. And again, reminds you all those key points. Eye contact, volunteer, talk about. Anything you want to add about the aid stations, Coach?
No, I think you hit the most of the highlights there. The one thing I tell my athletes is, aid stations in the 70.3 is more for last resort. You should try to think about being as self-sufficient as possible. Most bikes today are able to hold 2 to 3 bottles. So, theoretically, if you're using one per hour, you should be able to be self-sufficient for most of the race. But some riders may drop a bottle, or you may need to take some water just to cool yourself down. Perfectly acceptable. Or if you want a gel, something like that, certainly go in and get what you need, but then be careful coming out, just as Steve indicated before.
Yeah, and this is where we're a little bit different. And I tell my guys, is I said you're working really hard to get that bike so light and so aero. I said if you can just have the one bottle for and then time it between aid stations, you're actually saving yourself around a few extra kg. But again, different courses, and again, I know myself and Josh always have these little debates, but either way, aid stations are there for you. Build it into strategy, figure out whether or not it's just as a Josh more in case of emergency break glass or a Coach Steve, sort of build it into this is you know where it is. So we have now, before we go on to T2, I'd just like to say thanks for watching the video. Thanks to Josh so far for all the brilliant info he's given so far and will give more. Please like and subscribe to the channel. There's a load of other really good race reviews that Josh has done with me as well, and the info packed will also give you access to Josh in terms of his contact details at the end of the video because he's a bloody good coach. As you can see, he knows his stuff, and you can even tell the level of detail he brings to his coach, his athlete squad, that he's telling them about this element of the gradient, etc., and he'll prepare you within an inch of your life. So like, subscribe to the video, and looking for a coach, Josh is your man. Right, we are now back to our transition two, which is in a different place, and it's the red bag. So do you want to talk us a little bit through this, Josh?
Yeah, so transition two will be your run bag, and that bag needs to be prepared and tied. And usually they make you hang it on the bike rack or set it completely on the ground on Saturday prior to the race. So you have a very specific time that you need to drop this bag off, which means you need to have it prepared and ready for everything you want for the run Saturday. So you cannot touch this bag on race morning. They may make an exception, but I highly doubt that they will allow you to touch this bag unless there's an extreme emergency to touch this bag on race day morning. So that means everything needs to be in there, your runners, your hat if you want to wear one, or a visor, your sunglasses, your race run bib, race run belt if you're using a belt, all your nutrition, sunglasses if I haven't mentioned it. All those things that you need for the run need to be in this bag, and the bag needs to be tied and ready to go Saturday when you drop it off. So when you do come to this spot, it is right next to the finish line. So it's not identically right at the finish line. It's actually a little bit, removed, maybe 500 yards away. So when you look at the course map, you'll see where it's at. It's a little green rectangle that's just to the east of the finish line. And you'll see that that's where T2 is at. So,
Yep. Last minute tips for T2 before we go on to the run course.
no, what I will say here is, obviously when you come into T2, whether you do the flying dismount or just get off your bike and unclip, just be aware of who's around you, especially coming into that dismount line, because some people are a little bit intense or a little bit anxious, and they might make a mistake. We obviously saw Taylor Knibb have a little bit of an issue at Ironman Texas, getting her leg around the bike. So just make sure you know what you're going to do, rehearse it, practice it. I always like to say, I want to know where that dismount line is. And if I'm getting out of my shoes, I want to know the spot and the landmark that I'm getting out of my shoes ahead of time so that I'm not trying to figure it out on the fly on race day. And, coming into T2, you're obviously going to come off the bike. You're going to, rack the bike yourself. And then you're going to grab your run bag, which is going to be hanging or on the ground right next to your bike. And you're going to go out and start your run.
Fantastic. I'm gonna add that one last thing, and I use it in all the videos because it's one of our squad mantras. Nothing good happens in T2. Get in, get out. You can put your runners on, and then everything else you can move. You're putting your hat on. You should be running when you're putting your hat on. You should be taking your first gel when you're running. Do not. And the other thing one of my friends told me, the only good thing that we leave that we find in T2 is other people's problems. So get in, get out. Right, onto the run course. Let's talk about it. Looks there's a lot going on here. 2 laps, lots of turns. Do you want to talk us through it there, Josh?
Yeah, yeah. This course, again, like I said in the beginning, if you're looking for a PR, this is probably not the course unless you want to PR the swim. The bike course, you will not PR. And the run course, you probably won't PR. So if you look at the elevation map, there's almost 600 feet of gain. And again, you're either going up or you're coming down. So, right out of the gate, you're basically this map doesn't show it correctly, I don't think, because basically mile one is actually downhill. So you're actually coming out of T2, you're going to make a sharp left, you're going to go down, and you're going to make this first little entrance toward the stadium. You're going to have a couple turns in that first mile. And they've changed this run course. So they used to run this course the opposite direction, and you used to finish inside the stadium on the 50-yard line. Now they've moved the finish line outside the stadium, and the only time you go into the stadium is on lap number 1, and that's actually right at the 1 mile mark as you finish the rectangle before you come out of the stadium. So, there's a lot to navigate here. You're going to see a lot of crowd support. The entirety of this run is on the Penn State campus, so that is really nice. There is no road traffic to concern with. It's all going to be blocked off. The only people that'll be on this course will be the people running the race, and obviously the spectators will be out there lining the streets as well. But basically, the first mile, just get out and try to get into a run form that you can maintain, and think about fueling and run form and making sure your cadence is good so that you can maintain this throughout the run. So again, after you come out of the stadium, you're going to make a right-hand turn and head to the south. That's probably the longest and straightest part of the course, because you go all the way down, basically past mile 2, and then you make a turnaround. That's where aid station 2 is, in fact. And then you're going to make a turnaround. You're going to come up, and you're going to come out, and you're going to turn in about the middle of the course, and you're going to make a right-hand turn again, another right-hand turn, then you're going to come down to the south again on a different part of the course. And again, all of these are very like out and back style courses or little loops to kind of misdirect you to get you back to the course and going in the correct direction. So a lot of this is going to seem confusing. Just follow the runner in front of you for the most part and or follow the signs. The signs should count upward mile by mile. If you happen to see a mileage sign that might say number 8 for the first loop, it's probably not for that loop, it's for the second loop. So just be aware of that. Most of us that race wear a Garmin. You can probably tell by where you're at in the course by where your Garmin is telling you. But each one of these little turnarounds or these little circular sections are going to help you kind of, take a sweep through it could be a parking lot, it could be a little short little road that kind of widens you back around. But most of this is like a lot of out and backs. So you're kind of going down, you're coming around, you're coming up, you go on in a little section there at mile 5, come out, kind of go north. You do a little turn to the right, and then you come up to the north again. And then you're going to be coming toward the finish line, but you got to start lap number 2. So again, basically on lap 2, you do not go back into the stadium. The turnaround for lap 2 is right outside the stadium, and you're going to go down there, you're going to make a turnaround, then you're going to go do the whole course again. So whatever you see on lap number 1 is pretty identical to lap 2. So try to take a mental picture of that when you're running this course. And just remember, everything that goes up comes right back down on this course. And there's very, very few flat parts to this course. So I will say this again, just like you should be training for hills on the bike, you should do some hill training on the run, whether that's short little hill repeats or things like that. But some of these hills are a little bit chippy, as you can see. They might be 100 feet, 100, couple hundred yards potentially, but most of this is going to have some uphill gradient to it, and you're also going to get to come down. Now you can see a few of the spots at like say mile 3, between mile 5 and 7. Those are pretty steep downhills. So just remember, if you're not great at running downhill, you need to be cautious of that because you could get a little ahead of yourself. You could, feel like you're falling forward, but there's a definite tactic to running up and downhill. I'd encourage you to figure that out for yourself and or talk to a coach or practice on hills so that you know exactly how that's going to feel for you.
Cool, excellent. All right, and then on the second lap, we turn up in here and then onto the finish line, which we have a picture of, although picture incorrect because of the last year. Oh, just a quick one as well. Again, 8 stations. There's one every kind of mile. Same rules apply in terms of rubbish. The only real main difference is you will have electrolyte again with mortal hydration, but they'll also have Coca-Cola as well, which is great, little bit for sugar boost. And they will have a bit more variety in terms of the foods because you can actually stop and grab stuff. So again, don't miss any aid stations when you're there. If you're either keeping your car temperature down by taking splashing water on yourself, or topping up electrolytes, or actually fueling, and make sure you take advantage of that. So in terms of getting the job done, it is 8.5 hours from swim, T1, bike, T2, and run. So you will, as Coach Josh said, you probably will PR that swim, but you're going to work hard on that run and also the bike, but it will be well worth it. In terms of now, I'm caveating this, as Coach Josh has correctly pointed out, this is the old finish line where they used to finish in the stadium, which is cool and all the rest, but I'm sure that they'll have equally a cool finish line that's outside the stadium this time.
Yep.
Any last minute tips on the run course or the
Yeah, I'd say for this course very specifically, use lap 1 to build and pace, like stay steady early and be patient, and then use lap 2 to be racing, right? So you don't want to go too hard too soon. You want to try to build that negative split mentality. I will promise you, if you go out too hard on lap 1, you will definitely pay for it on lap 2. So make lap 1 easier than lap 2, and you will not regret it. It's always easier to speed up than it is to be forced to slow down because you went out too hard. So that's what I would say about this run course.
Absolutely brilliant tip. Love that. Okay, cool. So a little bit about the key event timetable because this is different. We'll talk, just make sure we'll get things right here. Um, Simple stuff as well. The registration does open on Friday, and is also open again on Saturday. You cannot register on race morning, guys. Just be very clear of that. There's some athlete briefings, which I always encourage my guys to attend, even if it's your 15th or your first Ironman 70.3. Things can change that are course specific very last second. And there's also questions that you probably want to ask. Even after you've watched this great video, make sure you just go in, reassured, and all the rest. The more interesting stuff for I'm going to ask Coach Josh talk to is about the check-in for the T1 and T2 stuff. This is what I pulled from last year's what do you call it, athlete guide. Do you want to talk us through kind of any key things that an athlete doing this course should be aware of?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything we haven't already discussed, Steve. I think for the most part we've gone into most things. I'd say, be prepared to kind of do some recon when you're at the race location. We talked about going down and looking at the swim start. You'll get to do that when you rack your bike Saturday. You'll also get to preview the bike course when you drive down to drop your bike off. And honestly, you can look at most of the run course because you can kind of walk in or drive that prior to race day. They'll have it all blocked off on race day. There will be no vehicles there, but for the most part, you can pretty much preview this entire course prior to race day, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the key thing is in terms of race day morning transition, where you can access your bike and you can put your bike computer on the food and all the rest. But as Coach Josh has pointed out, you won't have access to T2 bags because you're miles away. So make sure you, again, back to his other tip, take the picture of what went in the blue bag and the red bag. So you're nice and comfortable. Go, yes, I did put my shades in there. I do not need to look underneath the hotel room to find my shades. Rolling start will kick off at 7 a.m. on for an absolute belter of a course. Okay. So while we have covered, I think, absolutely an amazing amount of detail, do feel free to email Coach Josh at this email here as well. He loves to help out people's questions and all that. He's really, as you said, he's really generous with his time. And if you're looking at this race review as I'm trying to select a 70.3 for 2026 or even later on, make sure you hit him up. And because I don't, what level of hill climbing should it? This boy will know. This boy will direct you. So do hit him up. He's an excellent coach. I've worked with him in the past. He will actually completely put you right. And with that, I'm gonna stop sharing. Is there any last minute tips or anything you'd like to say to the viewers before we wrap it up there, Josh?
No, the last thing I'll say is, if we haven't mentioned it, there is a shuttle down to T1 for race day morning for the swim start. So make sure you know that shuttle schedule. You are actually able to be dropped off by your support crew that day as well, but they need to stay down there and park. They won't be able to. Just make sure you know the logistics for race day because you either need to take the shuttle down or the spectators can also ride with you. But there's definitely a shuttle schedule. You definitely need to be on one, and you definitely need to be prepared to be ready to race this point-to-point course.
Fantastic. Again, I'm trying to give him credit, and he's still giving us. He's still shooting at the great info tips, which is brilliant. So, on behalf of myself, Josh, again, always a pleasure. That it sounds like a race that you do need to know in advance is a bit more complicated than your average one. So, thank you for sharing all those hints and tips. Any last minute words for the folks at home?
No, thanks, Steve, again for having me on. I love doing these. As you said, I'm happy to help anyone that reaches out to me via the email on this channel. And again, I'd love to meet you. I'd love to connect. If you want to schedule a chat, it's always free to chat. And we will go from there and have a great race day.
Yeah, cool. And I will put Coach Josh's details in the comments below as well. So his Instagram, his email, etc. No, it's dead handy. Listen, we will call it there, Josh. Again, thank you very much. Until the next one.
Thanks, Steve.